Hey YouTube, what's up guys? Ryan Bidoff here, blogging from paradise, from beautiful Prague. Absolutely gorgeous day in the Czech Republic in Prague today. Sunny, I would say lower 60s. We're talking Fahrenheit. That's a joke because it would be pretty hot if it were lower 60s. See, there's a few ideas in mind when I'm thinking about one really freeing benefit of circling the globe, of traveling the world. And I was thinking of one more common benefit. Maybe it's not too common. Maybe most aspiring world travelers, people don't even think about circling the globe. Maybe it doesn't cross their minds, but as I was writing the word thingies for the Twitter space and the YouTube live broadcast, I thought about a different benefit that most bloggers, most travelers, most digital nomads don't really talk about or stress. And it's been so beneficial for me, for my freedom, my mind training. It's helped to cultivate a sense of compassion, empathy, and a deeper connection with the one mind that really is. Because we appear to be separate, but we're all just one mind that appears to be fragmented by the ego. But make no mistakes about it, there's just one mind. All the wisest minds in civilization, human history, if you will, have known this. They've discovered this and they've taught it. They've taught it too. They've taught it for millennia and they're still teaching it now. The enlightened minds out there, the ascended masters. So guys, what is this incredible freeing benefit of traveling the world, circling the globe? When you circle the globe with a more open mind, so maybe it's not 100% open, maybe you're judging, offering opinions and saying what's better or what's worse, but at least partially, when you circle the globe and travel the world with a partially open mind, you become more inclusive instead of exclusive. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, guys, in reality, we're one mind. We're just one. That's reality. That's what the truth is. However, the ego has created a very ingenious, clever illusion of us all being fragmented and separate and exclusionary. So that's pretty clever and it's pretty ingenious in its own way, but that's the world of exclusion. So I'll exclude this person, I'll exclude that person, I'll exclude this country, I'll exclude that race. I'll think only about myself and not about people on the other side of the world. I'll think only about myself and I'll exclude my next door neighbor. I'll exclude everybody in my town. That line of exclusionary thinking creates, we could say it's the illusion of, but it creates a nightmare. And any of you who tried to do anything by yourself or everything by yourself or try to get through life by yourself with this purely exclusionary frame of mind, you've probably figured it out. You might be figuring it out now, that teamwork makes things easier and easier and easier, and trying to do everything by yourself makes life really tough. If not impossible, ultimately, it becomes impossible. Now, using simple logic, let's say divine logic, if we're one mind that appears to be split up, but in truth, we're just one mind, wouldn't it make more sense to think in inclusionary fashion where you begin including everyone because you're one with them anyway in mind? You may not appear to be connected body-wise, but you've probably heard of the quantum field. Maybe you've heard of quantum physics. Really, guys, at the base of a lot of spiritual teachings is, in fact, we're all one. We're all brothers. Don't think of that in a literal sense. we're all male bodies. No, we're all brothers just means we're one mind that the ego appeared to separate. Most spiritual teachings preach at least some form of this idea that we're one. Traveling the world is so cool because the more you learn about that oneness by seeing maybe the appearance or the illusion of differences, different looking bodies, different languages, different cultures. The beauty in that, guys, is you begin to see that it's not so much about the differences in form, but it's the different lines of thinking that you become more not only tolerant of, maybe in the beginning not as much, but you become more tolerant. Then you don't resist it much at all, and you become more accepting. And then you realize ultimately when you're traveling and you're seeing underneath all these differences and different levels of thought that we are all really one. Because on the surface, different culture, different language, different food. Wow, that's fun. That's fascinating. It seems neat. Yet when you circle the globe, you begin to include everyone instead of exclude them. With an open mind. You got to do it with an open mind. Because if you don't, then you'll be the fool, the idiot. It is idiocy that says, well, my country is so much better than this, and this is what's worse. And there's a certain level of idiocy there. And I don't mean that in a pejorative sense of being nasty. I mean, it's just, there's not thinking going on. And we've all done it, and I do it from time to time. I've been an idiot, a traveling idiot. This is what's good, this is what's bad. That's not a movie about Europe in the background in the States. I'm here in Prague. I think that, right? The siren, that's pretty European. When you circle the globe and you gradually peel open your mind, you are able to see that amid these differences in thought, that we're all just one life. We're all one life form. And so much of it comes from the fact that you're including instead of excluding. And by that, imagine, okay, you're sitting in the States. Like I was sitting in the States back in New Jersey back 12 years ago. Never traveled. I didn't have my passport. I'd never been abroad. So at that time, I had just really known the US. That's what I included in my mind, like US citizens. So I'd done research about traveling before the trip. And I've done a little reading up on these places for sure. But at that moment, when Kelly and I decided to go to Bali, I decided to include Bali and the Balinese people in my experience, in my mind, but in my experience. So then when I went from the US to Bali, that was another island, I'll say another country ultimately, it's Indonesia. But I began to include their culture, their line of thinking, their customs into my experience and into my frame of mind. And when you do that, guys, when you see, yes, there are on the worldly level, it appears to be thinking differences, but all it is just thinking. That's really where you become inclusionary instead of exclusionary. You cultivate compassion and oneness and a sense of peace. You're removing judgment. Removing harboring strong opinions because you see they're like us. And then another country is like you. Then we went to Thailand and they're like the appearance of humans in the US. They're part of the one mind. Then you go to Cambodia, and then we went to Cambodia, and then we went to Laos, then back to Thailand, we went to Malaysia, went to Vietnam. So when you're including all of these countries in your travel itinerary, you begin to include their cultures. You begin to see again at that surface level of different cultures and customs, you see that it's just a different way that one mind is thinking. You just see the undercurrent of it all. You don't have tolerance. You're just open to, and you see, man, how cool is this? There's a fascination. There's a fun. You just keep, instead of alienating and cutting yourself off and creating fear and tension and judgment and all this egoic horse crap, you begin to include the world in your mind, and you see we're one. Begin to include everybody. And obviously, guys, when you have a sense of, even for like a fleeting moment, a glimpse of this one mind, your fears go away. Because if it's all just you, what do you have to be afraid of? See what I mean? The fear is only because of the separation. I'm afraid of this country. I'm afraid of that culture. I'm afraid of that body. When you realize there are you, just one mind that appears to be separate, then there's love and peace, and there's pure inclusion. However, and this is why it can be so important to hit the road, because there's such great symbolism here. When you don't travel, you tend to be, unless you're a very highly developed individual spiritually, meaning unless you really chose to train your mind, which you can do in your homeland, of course, without traveling, you're going to be exclusionary, because governments generally, predominantly, I mean, almost across the board, the whole idea behind a government is being exclusionary. Our country, exclude everyone else. Our citizens, exclude everyone else. This is how we do things, exclude everyone else. And when you don't travel and you have that exclusionary mindset, you're just going to have problems. You're going to be afraid. This country is dangerous. This country is beautiful. We do things better in that country. Well, that country does things better than us. Exclude, 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 separate, separate, separate. So you're not seeing the one mind in peace. You're thinking difference, dangerous, stupid, idiots. We're smart. Or even just as damaging, we're idiots and they're great over there. Well, how about instead of excluding, because you're not actually going to these countries and having these experiences and seeing how beneath the different thought systems that you're similar, that you're the same. When you see that every life form just wants to feel loved and express love. Every life that ever existed, even if on the surface it looks really different, meaning you see the illusion or the appearance of fear. When you travel, you just start to include all of these experiences, all of these cultures, all of these customs, all of these quote unquote people in your experience, in your mind. And with that inclusion, you're like, holy smokes. Ultimately, we're all one. We're all the same. And that fascination with the differences, it's cool. It's what makes traveling pretty fun. It's like the way to look at it, guys, this really freeing aspect of circling the globe. The differences, what appears to be differences of thinking and cultures and customs, it's fun to experience that. It's fascinating. It's fulfilling. It's interesting. It awakens your mind. It wakes you up. There's different ways to think in this world. So it makes you really open-minded. And then beneath that difference of thought, when you travel with an open mind, you get to the core of your mind, which just knows. What does the mind know at its core? What does the Holy Spirit know, or your intuition? We're just one mind. This is something that spiritual masters have been teaching for the longest time, and they're still teaching now. But it makes you inclusionary mainly because you actually go to these places and see it for yourself. What's going to happen if you stay in your homeland? Your news, major media, mainstream media, lesser media. I mean, most forms of media, it's going to be super hyper exclusionary. Well, you're living in this country and it's safe, and that country is dangerous. This part of the country is dangerous. You're safe where you're at. Or maybe where you're at is dangerous. This part is, you see what I mean, guys? It's just going to be all division, separation, fear, rage, death, murder, all these illusions that appear to be real because you're excluding, you're qualifying, you're removing. Hey, wait a second. My space on? Oh, whatever. My space went off. Maybe it never started. Post. Nah, went off. Whatever, I'm going to delete it. Delete tweet. Still do live videos on here? I don't think so, right? Let's give it a shot. Yeah, no more video capture. Huh. I don't know, just messing around with it. Guys, if you can include instead of exclude, you will understand one of the secrets of life, one of the secrets of happiness, one of the secrets of peace of mind, one of the secrets of... Now, let's put this. Do you travel to include or exclude? Question mark. All right, let's give this a shot. Let's do this on the fly. Let's see what happens now. Might go off skip. Okay. All right, we're back. Twitter space people. I don't know, maybe it'll work now. Kind of went out. But guys, and this is when I'm starting this Twitter space again. It kind of went out. Sorry, guys. On YouTube, you're bearing with me. The chief benefit of traveling is including instead of excluding. But like I just asked on Twitter via the space, are you traveling to include or exclude? Are you traveling to see how great your country is and how these other countries do things unintelligently, or maybe they're developing nations, or more pejorative sense, third world, and you live in this great first world country? Or are you doing it, and that's all fear, judgment, tension, egoic crap that creates chaos in your mind? Or are you traveling to include? To step into that oneness, to feel good, to feel at peace. Because the more you realize that it's just one mind, you lose your fear. The more you realize that it's just one mind, that chaos, that maelstrom that appears to be going on in your mind, that dissolves too. If it's all you, what do you have to be afraid of? It's almost like looking at your right hand, because it's all one mind. So who you see is you. It's a mirror. Appears to be different bodies, for sure. This is why you have to really get into your mind, and traveling is a great way to do it, guys. It's almost like looking at your right hand and being terrified that your right hand's gonna punch you when you're in complete control of your right hand, knowing that it's a part of you. Now, when it comes to the world in an inclusionary sense, you begin to learn that the world is your belief system reflected back to you, because it's just one mind. So if it's your right hand and you see something that appears to be really crazy happening in your life, or very upsetting, or egoically the snap judgment is that happened to me because I'm a victim. But the deeper you get in your mind, you know that it's your lesson for your mind. It just reflected a belief of yours, a belief in your mind back to you. Now, how is that for changing your life? When you gradually do this with practice and you listen to your intuition, or call it the Holy Spirit, call it whatever you want, traveling is so awesome, and it's so freeing for your mind, because the more you include everyone as you keep traveling to new countries, you keep immersing yourself in new cultures, the less you exclude from the comfort and confines of your home country, and the less you listen to exclusionary media, and the less you listen to exclusionary government. They're in the business of separating, dividing, and appearing to, illusory-wise, conquer. This is not brain surgery, guys. It's very easy to see once you travel, and also as you develop your emotional intelligence. You have to train your mind to see this. If you don't train your mind, if it's predominantly asleep, you'll say, no, but there is a threat. No, but these people are different. But like I said, guys, when you travel, you see that the differences are just in thinking. Cultural differences are these people in this area, these minds that choose to think differently. And it's fun and it's fascinating and it's quite fulfilling to see those differences, and it's enjoyable. It's just like, feeling of being on vacation. That's what it is in essence when you're doing long-term travel. But beneath those different thought patterns, the more you see different people, different cultures, different customs, different languages, different thought patterns, you start to dig down deeper into your mind and you see that these people are you. They're the same. Everyone's the same. Under the surface, under the different levels of thinking, you judge less. Like a place like here in Prague, and the less you judge, the better you feel, because you're living more in love and more in peace and less in fear and less in judgment and less in chaos. So I'll give you an example, and this is just part of that inclusiveness. Since I'm in a place like Prague now, and it's going to be about 3 weeks before we go, trip's wrapping up soon. Culturally, people here think, keep the town immaculate. Prague's often voted best city in the world, one of the best cities in the world, because it's got, I would say after being here for 3 weeks, getting a pretty good feel for the place. So not super long term, but you get a pretty good feel for a place, a little under a month, and really being out and about. I'm not just sitting up in the apartment for 12 hours a day. Way out on the streets, you've seen me hiking for sometimes 10, 12 miles a day around the city. But here in Prague, people think collectively, and that's why it is this way, keep it immaculate, keep it preserved, let's be honest now, grotesque looking, sorry for the judgment, commerce curbed. That means keep most of these buildings gorgeous and preserved and beautiful, like they know what they have. Make it green. Let's think to make it green. Let's think to make this whole entire city walkable. So when you factor in all these qualities of Prague, you see that it has so many of the things that make cities brilliant, and it lacks so many of the things that make cities detestable. That's why so many people voted as the #1 city in the world. But that's because the locals think this way. That's how it happens. If they were not thinking that way, then it would be potentially really filthy. Like a lot of cities are really filthy because the people that live there collectively, they have trash in their mind. So when you have it up here, then when you go outside, you throw trash around, you throw garbage out, and you don't care if it looks crappy or if it's unhygienic in your mind. And then it happens. And we see that in a lot of cities around the world, especially in my native US, unfortunately. But when you come to a place like here and you see that, you see the potential for when you go back home to the US, not that you do that yourself per se, unless you may have been in government, but just if you live in a city, that you doing your part, keeping the city clean, being a shining example for others in your mind, though, everything happens in your mind, could help collectively change the thinking, one glowing example at a time, which influences the next person. That goes back to the inclusivity deal of travel. You see that we're one the more you travel, because the more different lines of thinking, different cultures that I think Kelly and I have been to 40 something, 45, 47, whatever it is countries, a little under 50 countries, I believe, that we've traveled through. The more differences you appear to see, you realize we're all the same. We're all one mind. And traveling makes it easy to reveal that. Staying in your homeland makes it really tough to see that, because they just drill, most countries, if not all, just a lot really do just drill exclusivity instead of inclusivity. Stay here. This is what we think about that country. It's dangerous. And it's beamed to you through the news. It's just how it is, guys. You know this. And unless you travel, you'll think, oh, that country's really dangerous. And when you're in that zone of exclusivity, you'll live in fear, chaos, anger, rage, poverty, scarcity in a lot of cases. It's mental chaos. It's a nightmare. Traveling helps you cut through that. And you see, being exclusive keeps you incredibly ignorant. Now, guys, I'm not cutting on my friends. I love you guys, and I appreciate the concern and love. But when I traveled to Turkey during the seismic event of a couple months back, so many of my friends messaged me and asked if I was okay. And of course, not to be funny, but of course, if I wouldn't have been publishing live updates as I was if I were dead. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but literally, obviously, sometimes we want to keep the mind alert. But, and it was just kind of, I mean, you know, still appreciate the love, but so many of my friends who were maybe just thinking along a more exclusive lines, like having no idea what the geography is in Turkey, were thinking, oh my God, are you okay? Okay. And I appreciate it on a deeper level. I really do. Yet I was a 14-hour ride away from the quake zone. And I'd been tagging where I was. And obviously it took a split second for someone to check, or even someone to know that Kalkan is 14. It's on the other side. It's the western coast, right on the Mediterranean. The earthquake was on the eastern border with Syria. But that's what exclusive thinking about your country, about yourself, focusing on that and not getting out in the world, not traveling, not doing your research, you lose touch with reality. And that we're all one. And you lose touch with connecting factors that you make with different countries, information, intellectual knowledge, just a certain worldliness about you, and that you'd know, like, yeah, Turkey's a huge country. It's 15 hours east to west by car, a big country at least. And I was getting the concern. I appreciated it, but I was in New York City, and it'd be like, for US, this is the analogy I use because most of my US-based friends would understand this. I'm like, I was in New York City, and the earthquake was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Like, that's far. And oh, okay. And I appreciate it. Again, it's not that I was annoyed or upset, but it just revealed when you're thinking about your country and you're not out there in the world more, you lose that chance to connect. You lose the oneness. You lose the peace. When you're not traveling, you don't see that there's different ways of doing things or different ways of thinking, not so much that are better or worse than your country, because you don't want to get into that duality thing, but to just open up your mind. Like here, it's almost staggering to see a city, a major city that's immaculate, but it shows what happens when you have the power of thinking. When the locals, you see people out in the parks every day, city workers with their fluorescent coats on, jackets and outfits that are always, every single day. It seems like 7 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, keeping the parks clean. If there was just any small amounts, trace amounts of trash around strewn about, they're picking them up. Hedging, trimming the trees, trimming the hedges, raking. It's just amazing. And it's a thinking level of commitment that shows you what really is possible in a peaceful city and very little traffic and incredible intent as far as thinking and planning and engineering. There's sidewalks everywhere. There's walking paths everywhere. If the sidewalk goes into the street on a highway, guaranteed, I've just seen it again and again, and it rarely does, you see that there is a pathway to the right, real wide 15, 20, 25-foot pathway, walkway that goes up the stairs. They set up stairs, they design stairs, create stairs, build stairs, right up through a housing development or a neighborhood that takes you back around. It's just incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And it shows you that intentionality and thought that helps everything come together. Yet, even amid the differences of a lot of major cities in the US in terms of thinking, and Prague, when you do the travel bit, you realize we're one. We're one mind. It keeps you thinking inclusively. Let's think of everyone before we make our decision. I think that'd be a great concept to wrap up, right? So instead of thinking, how's it going to benefit our country? How's it going to benefit me? How's it going to benefit my family? How's it going to benefit my family? How's it going to help? Let me try to think all inclusively. Me making this decision, how will it be for the good of all? Even if I don't appear to connect with them, body-wise, we're just one mind. Me deciding to follow my dreams, how is that going to benefit all? That's thinking inclusively. That's thinking aligned with the intuition, and that's thinking aligned with the Holy Spirit. And you guys probably know by now when you start making these decisions in the world, when you listen to your intuition, your guidance, your unfailing, perfect guidance. In the world, some of these decisions won't be too popular, yet it will give you a peace of mind and a feeling of love and warmth because you're listening to love. You're listening to perfect guidance. And traveling helps you develop that level of inclusiveness. Inclusivity. You'll be thinking about the whole more and more. Because the more you travel, you realize we're all the same. The differences can be fun and fascinating, surface level, but deep down, we are all the same. So that's it for today, guys. I'm going to roll a nice half hour here. Enjoy these beautiful sights and sounds. Spaces went out again. Really wasn't feeling it. Oh, boy. Twitter. I like Twitter. You know what you have to do with Twitter? You kind of have to just brute force 13 minutes. Yeah, whatever. All right, guys, that's it for today. Make sure you stop by bloggingparadise.com. If you like to find out what to do, enjoy paradise all.